Hello, everyone. We're going to give you a few moments to join us. This is Marty Reed with Positive Coaching Alliance, and we are live right now on Facebook with Greg Mescall. He is with USA Water Polo. So join in. If you know any water polo players, even swimmers, people involved in youth sports, coaches, parents, athletes, send this link out. Let them come join us. We're really excited to have him with us today. I'm actually going to be following along on my phone for any questions from the audience, so feel free to type in any questions in the comments, give us a wave, let us know where you're calling from. All right, let me just double check that we are live here on Positive Coaching Alliance. Yes, perfect. Thanks for joining us. Give us a wave. Let us know where you're calling in from. I'll give you a couple more seconds to join us here, but let me introduce Greg to you all. I'm so happy to have him with us today. Greg Mescall is USA Water Polo's Director of Communication. So he handles everything, all their media relations, webmaster, he's an editor, the main reporter and host for all USA Water Polo broadcasts and production. So we're going to have a great conversation here today. Thanks for joining us, Greg. How are you?
I'm doing well, Marty. Appreciate you having me on here. Excited to talk with you. I know we had a great talk on Monday with USA Water Polo, and excited to talk with the PCA fam here.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. And I'm so happy that people are tuning in and waving. I see your wave, Paula. How's it going? Thanks for joining. So let's just jump in because I know we don't have too much time today, but I would love to know, how USA Water Polo is connecting right now with its members during this sports hiatus, due to the pandemic of COVID-19.
Yeah, we started a program. We're now in week 5 of what we call At Home with USA Water Polo, and it's been a weekly email that goes out Monday to all of our members with a whole bunch of stuff, things from Positive Coaching Alliance, conversations with our coaches, our athletes, experts. So it's everything from how to get better at water polo when you can get back in the pool, to exercises you can do at home, meals you can cook on your own, other tips, mental wellness. I mean, it really just anything you can think of that's for the betterment of athletes, coaches, fans. That's the stuff that we're sharing. A lot of member exclusive content, and then a lot of stuff that's for everyone that's just part of the water polo community. So we've been sharing a ton. We have a lot more to come, and we're excited to try and connect with people. There's no pool for them to get into, so this is the best we can do to try and keep everyone engaged.
Yeah, and just off of that, knowing that pools are closed right now and it's pretty hard to practice their specific craft in the water, what are some other things that water polo players or even swim or water dominant sports, what can they do right now to grow at home outside of the pool?
Yeah, anyone in the world of aquatics will be familiar with the idea of dryland activities, and a lot of water people, they despise these, right? Because they love to be in the pool. They don't want to go run laps, but you'd be surprised the amount of things. There's a lot of creative folks in the water polo community that have come up with ideas to try and stay engaged. Of course, I think everyone will tell you that if you're an athlete, you want to just keep exercising, right? So whether it's a run or yoga or the stationary bike to get that heart rate up. But then for water polo specific stuff, there's been a lot of activities with tennis balls where goalies can work on their hand-eye coordination. You're seeing people just even passing in their backyard. You see a lot of people kind of get down on their knees to kind of mimic what it is to kind of be only waist up in water. So you can't be treading the way you would in a pool because there is no pool, but you can work on those arm motions to kind of throw the ball, pass it back and forth. So people are just trying to stay engaged in that way, work on some of the same muscles that are important in water polo and try and find that land equivalent.
Oh, great. Such great advice because, it's important to stay healthy, and continue to move your body, have that mobility. I remember, I'm a land sports person, but I do remember we would have pool workouts, so I think it's great to do both. So it's important if you are, aquatics dominant, that you're still getting out of the pool and stretching and doing those mobility exercises to make sure that, you're getting stronger, and that's going to benefit you when the time comes where you can get back into the pool. So thanks for that advice. I know you're a communication specialist. And as a specialist in communication, how do you decide, what to highlight and showcase and share to your members? Like what type of news do you look for?
That's an interesting question. We probably think of it in two buckets. One, things that are just kind of fun and engaging. If you play water polo or you're a fan or you're maybe a booster member, so you care about someone that does play and you want to stay involved, you're probably just interested in something fun about the sport. So maybe that's a great highlight of a goal or a fun video, a throwback video from a past World Championships or Olympics, or something silly. Just this week we shared a clip from Jeopardy where water polo was mentioned and everyone got the answer wrong. And the water polo community had a lot of fun with it because they know the right answer and they're a very prideful, proud group. And then the other part of it is what we just talked about. It's really the kind of useful information, the tactics, the techniques. These are people that all want to get better, whether they're a coach, an athlete, even a parent, right? PCA talks about it all the time. Everyone wants to be better at supporting the person that's in the sport. So if you're a parent, you want to be a better parent to your kid that's playing, or if you're an athlete, you want to be a better athlete. Coach, you want to coach better. So we found a lot of success with the stuff that, in lieu of being in the pool, the mental aspect, things you can work on, coaching plans, how can I connect with my athletes better, all that sort of stuff, those sorts of things. And we have a lot of people in the water polo community that have retired from the sport but are still heavily engaged. They have a lot of content. Those are the things that we're sharing that we think people have been receptive to. But also, right, and I'm sure you're finding this too, it's an unprecedented time, so it is a little trial and error, right? You try some things and you find out that's not really hitting with everybody. Let's go in a different direction. And then over time, now 5 weeks, we've found stuff that works.
I just wanted to give a couple of shout outs to some people joining us in today. Again, this is Marty Reed with Positive Coaching Alliance, and I'm here with Greg Mescall. He is the Director of Communications for USA Water Polo. Thanks for joining in. And I see you, Patricia, Paula, Alice, Michelle, Sydney. If you guys have any questions, please leave it in the comment section. I'm actually following along on my phone and I can ask your questions as well. So thank you so much for joining in, and don't be afraid to, ask questions in the comments. Now, our topic for this week is actually honoring the game. That's one of our PCA principles, all about respecting the roots. That's an acronym. We talk about respecting the rules, officials, opponents, teammates, and self. With this principle, and with your experience in sports broadcasting, how do you keep an unbiased opinion and honor the game when you're reporting?
I think for me, in any sport that I'm calling, whether it's water polo or basketball or football or a winter Olympic sport, whatever it might be, I always try to keep the focus on the participants, the athletes and the coaches, and all the hard work that they've put in to try and get to where they're at, whether it's just a regular season game or it's Olympic gold medal, whatever it might be. I know a lot of people, and we talked about this in the past, Marty, people will focus on the officials in the sport. And you can go to any sport in the world, and before a game, there will be someone who will say, did you see who's reffing this game? Did you see who we got? Yeah. I remember this ref. They did this thing 10 years ago, and I've never forgotten it. And as an announcer, wow. I certainly don't ignore anything that goes on when it comes to officiating, but I try to avoid highlighting what might be a mistake or something very controversial in lieu of putting it back on the great effort of the players and coaches. I think it takes something away from all the competitors when you focus too much negativity on the officials. And let's be honest too, whether you're reffing water polo, whether you're a softball umpire, whatever it might be, those are hard things to do. That's a tough job to have. And so I try and give respect to those folks too, knowing that they have the unenviable task of trying to make some difficult calls in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, that's so true. And I feel like officials don't get as much respect as they should. We're talking about the game and how any match or meet or game, when you have your star player doesn't show up, or maybe assistant coach doesn't show up, the game still goes on, right? If an official doesn't show up, we can't play the game, so we cannot play the game without them. So it's so important to remember, their commitment, and they're also human and they're going to make mistakes. But it's really important not to focus on those things that are outside of our control, right? And making sure that parents, coaches, players understand that officials are doing their best and we should respect them and really focus on what the things that are in our control. So thanks for that advice as well. Let's see, how can athletes use this time right now to build their brand in a positive way, whether that be social media or maybe what type of things should they be sharing, clips or anything like that to help build their brand in a positive way?
I think it's probably different for different athletes at different levels.
Yeah.
We've talked about what athletes should share on social media in the past, and if you have your more established athlete, maybe a college athlete, maybe a highly recruited high school athlete, a professional athlete, this is a fantastic time to connect with your fans when you normally wouldn't have that opportunity. Your schedule is very busy. You're traveling. You have games. A lot of that's been taken away. So now a great chance to offer your expertise. And this is sometimes a big hurdle for athletes to get past. Sure, somebody like LeBron James knows that everyone cares what he thinks about basketball. But even the average college player with 1,000 followers or maybe less, they've gotten to a certain level that so many people aspire to get to. And they don't even think of it, right? You're just in your own kind of world, trying to advance, trying to make your team. But even at that level, you've achieved something that many others are trying to achieve. Offering some tips, how you got there, what you do to stay there. I think that's a great way to kind of connect with people. And then on the up and coming level, if you will, that's a chance for you to try and reach out and try and connect with other people. Maybe share some of the things that you're working on, right? Everyone's trying to find that line of not being too braggy and boastful, right? But also getting yourself out there. It's a tricky line to walk. It's one of those ones that you kind of know when you're overdoing it, and you know when maybe you haven't done enough, but everyone has to kind of settle into their own boundaries on that. But I think bottom line on social media in this time, everyone has more free time. It's a great chance to connect, to go up to connect, and to come down to connect.
Yeah. That's great advice. Well, I hope all those that are listening are taking some great notes right now. We do have a question from the audience from Maggie Hatcher. This is a great question. She asks, can you talk about honoring the game in a sport that is so physical? I mean, we know water polo is very physical for the athletes. It's an aggressive sport. So how do athletes honor the game in a sport that's very physical?
Yeah, I think you can play physically and not bring negative intention to it. So many sports have a physical nature. I'll give a classic example. You watch an NFL game on Sundays. The NFL is as physical as it gets, but what happens after every NFL game? Two of the best players are trading their jerseys after the game, right? As a sign of respect for each other and for what just went on over the last 60 minutes of play. And that's across the board, right? Water polo is similar. There's some physical play, especially if you're a 2-meter player, you're a center defender, right? You're going to be tussling. You can do that without intent to hurt somebody, without intent to be negative. And then after it's over, there can be that mutual respect of, hey, we both gave it our all here. We both tried to give our team the best chance to win, and good game, and we'll try and do it again next time. And I know it's tough when you're in a physical situation, but you have to try and separate some of the personal feelings that might come with having your personal space invaded, and just understand it's part of the game. And by not taking it negatively and by not crossing a line, that's how you respect the game. That's great.
That's such great advice, because obviously when you're in that water and it's game time and you're going at it, yes, things are going to get physical, but you don't have to be in a negative intent when it comes to that physicality, and respecting the game and respecting your opponents after the game. And that was a great example about exchanging jerseys. Football players, water polo players definitely can speak to their opponents, shake their hands, things like that after the match is over. Great advice. Now, what are the current goals and initiatives of USA Water Polo?
Well, we have a couple of goals. If you look at USA Water Polo's mission, it's divided into two pretty basic principles. One is to grow the sport around the country, and then the other is to be successful when it comes to international competitions and domestic competitions as it relates to national teams. So, of course, we know on that second goal, things postponed a bit right now with the Olympic Games postponed for a year until next summer in Tokyo. That doesn't change the mission for our national teams. They're still staying connected. Everyone's on Zoom calls and they're doing team workouts and all that sort of thing. So their goal remains for the women. It's to go for their third straight Olympic gold medal, which they're already in unprecedented territory with their dominance. We're trying to do that again. For the men, it's an aim to return to the podium for the first time since 2008. So they have their marching orders. They understand what they're after, and it's to represent the U.S. as best as possible on the international level. The other side of it, we're also a membership organization. We talked about the 50,000 plus members we talked to with our at-home series, and it's to give them a great member experience and then help grow the sport around the country, which we're seeing. We talked about it recently on USAWaterPolo.org about the growth of the game, not only with some college programs growing, and we know there's been some recent news of a few programs having to shutter their programs due to some financial difficulties, which is always tough, and that's unfortunately a problem right now with this pandemic. But other than that, the growth, not only at the college level, but at the high school level. So a place like Texas that just recently approved UIL sanctioning, which essentially is the state saying we're going to endorse high school water polo as an official sport. Growing there, growing elsewhere, clubs growing, getting our youth program, what we call splash ball, into places like YMCAs and boys and girls clubs. So that's really the two parts of it, growing the game and then also being successful at it at those high levels.
Yeah. I'm also thinking, do you foresee that a lot of athletes out there that are maybe predominantly land sport athletes, do you foresee after this pandemic is over and we're returning back to sports, do you foresee a spike in numbers of more people coming to the pool? What do you think about that?
It sounds great to me. You know, we've seen high school water polo, the stats, according to the NFHS, show that in sanctioned states, the sport's growing, right? So there are a bunch of states, like at Texas, where those numbers aren't even realized yet, and we know that it's growing. We'd certainly love to see more and more people give water polo a shot. Hopefully, maybe with nobody having pool access, this encourages more people to get into the pool and give it a try. We're certainly big fans, like many national governing bodies, of people trying multiple sports. You know, you shouldn't just do one thing your whole life. You could try a lot of things. We hope at the end you settle on water polo, but try a bunch. Find out what works best for you. And I think if you try many things, you might find that water polo is something for you.
Right. And I do see a lot of sports, sampling with water polo players. They don't just specialize in one sport. I do see at the youth level a lot of water polo players playing multiple sports, which is going to make them stronger at the end of the day, even if water polo is their dominant sport. So thank you for voicing that here. Just wanted to shout out those that are joining us today. Thank you so much. Gina, I see you. Michelle Ryder, thanks for joining in. So right now, as you know, Positive Coaching Alliance has launched our campaign, Life is a Team Sport. You know, now more than ever, we are all on the same team. We have to support each other. We are all in this together. So I wanted to ask you, how can clubs and programs and coaches stay connected and keep their players motivated? Like, is there any, best practices that you have for communication?
Sure. And these are things that I think you'll hear from a lot of people, because a lot of people are asking that same question. How do we stay connected? We're used to all showing up to practice at the pool multiple times a week. We don't have that right now. Yeah. There are many ways on technology, the way we're talking right now, right? Whether it's Zoom or Blue Jeans or Facebook or Instagram Live or whatever it is, FaceTime, a number of ways for everyone to stay connected. But everyone will tell you that it is vital to have some sort of routine. This has been the ultimate situation where your routine has been altered. Everything that you used to do has been kind of turned upside down. The more that you can get into a stable routine, which includes communicating with your athletes and vice versa, it's going to benefit everybody. So if you're a coach or you're leading a club or you're a high school coach, whatever it might be, and so many teams have already done this, but if you can say, look, every Tuesday and Thursday, we're going to talk for an hour at 6 p.m. Everyone set your calendars so everyone knows. That gives people time to plan for it. It gives people time to look forward to it. It gives people time to brainstorm things to bring to that conversation that'll make for a constructive hour of team time. So there are a lot of ways that people can make sure they connect, but you have to build it into that routine so that everyone feels connected. And then when it is time to get back into the pool or onto the field or the court, you haven't lost that touch. And then another good point we heard this week from some of our water polo athletes was one-to-one communication. So you're going to have that team conversation. You're going to have that coach-led experience, but don't be afraid to reach out to one of your teammates or all of your teammates in one-offs and find some common ground among them. Now, it's going to be easier if you go to school together or you're in the same college program. But if you don't have some of those built-in things, find a way to connect about a similar book you're reading, a TV show you like, something else that's going on, and you'd be very surprised. It'll make that person feel good, and it'll make you feel good, because we're all going through those days, right, where it's, you're kind of riding the wave of, I feel a little down, I feel a little up, right? The best thing you can do, connect with someone else. It's going to make both of you feel better.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. I mean, we really appreciate you, Greg, for joining us today and sharing this information. Absolutely amazing advice for not just aquatic players out there, but just youth sports out there, coaches, parents. I hope that they are sharing this information with everyone. We just linked the USA Water Polo resources in the comments. So definitely take a look at that if you're tuning in right now. Again, this is Marty Reed with Positive Coaching Alliance. I'm here with Greg Mescall. He is the Director of Communications for USA Water Polo. I think this has been a great conversation. We're going to wrap up here, but I just wanted to thank you one last time for joining us today and sharing with us your expertise and resources based on, the current situation that we're in now and things that we're going to be able to do after we get over this hump. So we appreciate you so much. Thank you all for tuning in, and we hope that you have a great Wednesday. We'll see you again soon.